What's going on, YouTube? This is Marcus, the debt free dad here. Have you made a good money move today? A bad money move? Well, it doesn't matter because your road to financial freedom starts here. So I appreciate everybody tuning in to the videos and following me on my debt free journey. Um, this video a little different. I'm shooting it from my phone, sitting here chilling. Just came from outside. Beautiful day outside in DC. But essentially, this video is about my why. What happened to change my outlook on finance? What happened to change my outlook on how I'm gonna repay these student loans? I think in another video, if you look at some of my videos where I'm talking about my student loan and that over $230,000 balance on student loans, my initial goal was to hey, hopefully I die at 90 and I owe them $100,000, and then I'll be happy as I look down from heaven and laugh at Sally Mae. But the thing that really happened that kind of changed my outlook, my perspective on things, um, this summer I had a brain aneurysm, which is crazy. I mean, you think of brain aneurysms and heart attacks. You normally think of people in their 60s or something to that effect. It's still in my 30s, so it sounds crazy, but and I work out every day. I mean, exercise all the time, like a fitness geek and all. So it was really strange and I guess shocking. But essentially what happened, it was summer in June. I remember, I'm standing in front of the mirror and I had a headache and I thought to myself, man, I got this do rag tied too tight or something. What's going on? So I undo my do rag from the back, and when I take my do rag off, I stepped away from the mirror and I immediately got dizzy. And I was like, what in the hell? So I didn't want to fall. I'm pretty familiar with my body, how I feel. I don't normally have headaches or anything crazy like that. So I put my hand on the wall and pretty much just touched the wall till I got from one room to another because this is after midnight. So I went to another room and I took a knee and I was like, hey, call 911. Something's not right. And so I felt like shit really for about 4 or 5 minutes. I mean, dizzy, sweating, headache, not a pounding headache, but that initial pain was a sharp pain, then it just went away. But I had a little bit of a headache, so the EMS guys got there. They did all their things, blood pressure and all that, and hey, thank God for all of our healthcare professionals. But they were like, "Oh, you look fine. All your diagnostics, your blood pressure down." Because by the time they finally got there, I was feeling a little bit better, and so they was like, "Hey, well, we can take you to the hospital, or you can go on your own." So I ultimately decided, well, go ahead, have them take me to the hospital. I know something not right. So I walk out of the house, go into the ambulance, sit down. I was able to walk out of there, out of the house under my own volition. I get to the ER, they sit me down. I sit there for an hour or so. They run some tests, and they come back, early in the morning, maybe 2 in the morning. Was like, hey, you had a brain aneurysm, and the doctor's kind of in shock because it ain't like I got high blood pressure, high cholesterol. I'm like healthy, they like, yeah, it's kind of weird. No headaches or nothing. And I was like nothing. So um, they tell me, hey, after a couple days, we want to make sure that there's no swelling or anything. Then a couple days, we're gonna go in and fix it. So they briefed me on the procedure. The procedure essentially, they go in through an artery in your leg. After they go through that artery in your leg, they go through your leg and they put these metal coils into the vein or the artery that essentially had burst, ruptured. And those coils will cause that ruptured artery or vein to clot so that it can't bleed again. And so I go in for surgery. I come out fine, and at this time I'm not even taking it like it's not like they cutting my head open or something. So I'm taking it kind of as a light surgery. I was supposed to be in the hospital for 2 weeks. I ended up getting out after 10 days. So I was supposed to be in 14 days. I ended up getting out after 2 days. But after I get out surgery, the doctors come back in and was like, hey, we found something while we was in there. Now immediately I'm like, oh shit. I'm like, we found something while we was in there. Something that, excuse me, you don't never want to hear your doctor or your mechanic say. And so, they tell me I have a arterial. arteriovenous malformation. Essentially, what that is, or AVM for short. But what it is it's an extra set of veins and arteries that carry blood and oxygen to and from the brain. But because these things are the malformation is because they're so tangled up and intertwined, anytime your blood pressure increases from exercise or doing anything, there's a high risk of rupture. So they was like, hey, we got to go in and do something about that. So I had a surgery. I go to the hospital. I have a surgery 2 days later. Then a day later, I go back up. I have another surgery, and they did what they call a embolization. What an embolization is they essentially go through that same artery into your brain, and they put a like a glue. They shoot glue into those arteries and veins, and it pretty much imagine the glue going in, providing extra support for the walls of the arteries and the veins to prevent a rupture in the future. And so that's what they did. They did that. I got out of surgery. After a couple of days, I was feeling okay. Didn't feel 100%, but I was feeling good considering someone was in my brain messing around with things. And it's crazy because I don't know. It was just hard for me to fathom. Like, damn, I'm in my 30s and I had to have brain surgery. That's is insane. And so the doctors come back in and they say, hey, well, we have to do something about that AVM. You got three options. And I'm like, again, three options. I was like, oh, shit. Option number one was do nothing and just live with the fact that there's a 5% risk every year that this thing could rupture. That's definitely not an option. So that I was like, all right, next. Next option was radiation. They take a pin that has a concentrated radiation like a laser pin, and they point it at the exact area where this AVM is located. Um, and you continue to get this treatment over a 2 year period, and probably at like year three, the radiation essentially kills those veins and arteries that you don't need. So they kind of dissolve and dissipate to a point where there's actually no risk of bleeding or rupture. The thing I mean, it was non-invasive. You in and out. You just got to keep getting this treatment, and that's the good thing about it. The bad thing about it that I really didn't like was, hey, my brain is my livelihood. I can't. I don't want radiation around my brain. Period. Unless it's an absolute necessity. That was my first strike against that option. Strike number two against that option was, even if you have this surgery, it takes 3 years for the AVM to get to a point where there's no risk of rupture. So up until that 3 year period, you still run a 5% risk every year that it could rupture. And the last thing I would do is I would hate to go get this surgery. I'm getting it for a year and a half, then the damn thing rupture, and I'm back at square one. So that definitely didn't pose to be an option. So option number three was, I was like, hey, this is what it's going to be. I'm gonna go in there. Yeah, I cut my scalp, cut my brain open, cut my skull open, go in there, take it out, close me back up, and it's a done deal. So that was an option I elected to take. But just because I just recently had two brain surgeries in a 5 day period, I ended up staying in the hospital a total of 10 days. You're supposed to stay in for 14, but I was doing well, so they cut me loose after 10. But the crazy part was you have this sleep deprivation because every hour on the hour while you're in the hospital after an aneurysm, they have to check you and give you these cognitive tests. Make sure that you can follow their finger, you can feel the movement to make sure all your cognitive neurons are firing properly, and yeah, it was just a crazy thing. But even then, because it was kind of non-invasive, I didn't really feel the effect of the surgery. I'm like, it's brain surgery, but it's kind of light, and so and I don't know. I feel like I guess a part of it is a little bit of arrogance too, because I normally just tend to heal fast from things. So, 10 days, in like 6 or 7 days, I was walking around and you know giving people my sprites because I had all these sodas and Gatorades that I had somebody had brought to me. And so I go home, I decide what option I want to have, and then late August I go back for this next surgery. Now this next surgery is probably a little bit more difficult from a standpoint like, yeah, they cutting your scalp open, your skull open, going in your brain, and the doctor got to have a steady hand. And so this was probably a little bit more nerve wracking. But I'll tell you, the entire time throughout this process, I didn't have any fears of if the surgery was unsuccessful or if God forbid I'm no longer here because, and I say this in a way not to sound like a tough guy or nothing, but I mean, I've been in a lot of life or death situations between growing up in the city, being in the military, being deployed to Iraq in 2003 when the Operation Iraqi Freedom was just jumping off and it was like real, to this brain surgery thing. So I always kind of had this view of, what's in God's plan is God's plan. All I could do is just take the ride however it goes. So I never really thought about if it didn't go well, but the one thought that did cross my mind was, I sat there and I was just adding in my head before the day before surgery, like, okay, I got this in these accounts, I got this insurance policy, I got these assets, I got these liabilities. And I'm just doing all this thinking because I want to make sure my family good, my kids are straight, they can go to college, and they got something for after college. And so, I have the surgery the next day, and it's funny because after the surgery, they give you all these tests to make sure that everything is functioning properly. But of course, you're gonna make your own tests. So immediately after surgery, I'm trying to remember rap lyrics to complex songs from the '90s, like by Eminem and Busta Rhymes, and I'm thinking of all these legal concepts and cases and statutes just to make sure that I can recall things. And after a couple of days, it hit me that like, damn, you blessed. You've been to a war. You seen some crazy stuff in your life. You had this brain surgery, and you've always been able to walk and talk and function as this whole process was going on. It was, it kind of hit me that it's my obligation to make sure that, my family is in a position to win. And I had that obligation whether I'm here or whether I'm not here. And, like, I never been terrible with finances. I invest consistently. I've been doing so for a long time. I got some, things in real estate that I can do that I've kind of done over the years. But, the thing that kind of sunk in the back of my head was if you didn't have this student loan and you can actually pay off your mortgage, you could really be in a position to help, your family, everyone else. One thing I always want to do, or I'm going to do, is start a scholarship fund as well. And those were the type of things that kind of jumped out at me. Like, how you going to make sure your family in a position to win if you aren't here? If you aren't here, what's going to be your legacy that you leave behind? Not just your kids, but something that you can do that'll continue to give back to other people. And so, you know, that was really the situation that changed my outlook on how I'm going to approach my finance, how I'm going to approach these over $230,000 in student loans. Each surgery, the first two surgeries, I was out for 2 weeks. That next surgery where they cut me open, I was out for 2 weeks. The wild thing is, just kind of on a, I guess, a lighter note. There's always crack jokes about men and their hair and how important a man's hair was. It was like their external penis, so they really take pride in it. But after they cut me open, I had some George Jefferson action going on for, like, I don't know. It was going. I say maybe it lasted 3 weeks, 4 weeks before it started growing back in. So right now it's not too bad. It's kind of growing back in, but I guess that was a God's way of humbling me, saying that, hey man, don't worry about your hair all the time. It's a lot more important stuff than how your hair look. But that was always a joke I used to have. But that situation, it was probably more scary for my family members, my mother, my father, and all of my immediate family than it was for me. But that was the situation that kind of changed my why and my approach to how I want to approach my finances and how I'm going to approach my debt moving forward. So again, this is just kind of a rant, but it talks about you know it literally took a situation where I could have died to make me change my outlook on how I'm gonna approach this debt and what I'm gonna do moving forward to put my family in a better position. And so that's it. I guess the moral of this story is to facilitate any change, you have to figure out what your why is, what your reasoning, your rationale is for doing it. And so, everybody, if you watch this video, actually leave a comment and let me know what was your moment that made you realize that I had to change something in my life. I had to change how I'm approaching my finances, because you got to have that why moment. I thought somebody was at the door, so I was looking out. But you got to have that why moment a lot of times, and I mean that's going to be what motivates me to move forward. Even though it's a debt, it's a large debt. It looks insurmountable, but it's not insurmountable. I mean, we all have done stuff that defied the odds. We all proved haters wrong. And this is just another thing that you got to do, that I got to do. Hey, I'm going to prove Sally Mae wrong. Haha, I like your payment plan, but fuck your payment plan. I'm going to take care of this when I need to take care of it, sooner than later. So I appreciate you all checking out this video. Like, subscribe to the channel, comment, share. Make sure you hit that bell. I do upload new videos every Wednesday, Friday, and Sunday. I'm going to try to stick true to that schedule. And again, I appreciate you all tuning in. God bless. Peace.